Today we are answering one of the most common questions we get, which is, should I wear barefoot shoes? And just what shoes are going to be the best for me? So like most answers you get from us, it depends. We're gonna go through a couple of the reasons it depends, a couple of suggestions, and even take a look at some shoes. So the first thing to consider is we weren't really born or made to be walking on concrete all day. You're supposed to be swinging through trees, hills, grass. You can just think about how things used to be when our foot was really forming. So that's the first thing to really consider. So someone that's gonna wear a barefoot shoe or something with less support, you're gonna have to really progressively overload your foot. Just like you would not be able to bench press 700 pounds right away, you'd have to slowly build up strength there. That's something that I did really foolishly. I got caught on the barefoot trend, wore Vivos every day for years in New York. The only injuries I had were all on my feet. And it became very clear that obviously doing 5 miles in them, I wasn't ready for it and it wasn't gonna work out. Just to be clear though, there is some people that have been barefoot their whole life. The surfers have been walking on rocks and all this stuff, and maybe you can be ready for it, but just be open to the idea that it's gonna take some time for your feet to adapt, and you definitely don't wanna jump in first. The next consideration is really, what are you trying to do? For example, if I'm gonna go play basketball, I'm not gonna last very long in barefoot shoes, and you'll see that by the design of the basketball shoe. It's a little thicker, maybe it's a little bit higher, so there's a little bit more support around the ankle. If I'm gonna go and work out on a field, I'm gonna do a change of direction day, plyos, sprinting, curb sprints, any of that cool stuff, you're gonna be on grass and you're probably not gonna be able to pivot and turn very well. So that's when you would maybe want a cleat or a spike. We'll look at that and talk about the individuals on that. Now, there's different levels of support in terms of the shoe as well. So when we actually get to the shoe, I'll go over that, but essentially there's different levels of how much cushion you can have. And they don't have to go to like Tony Romo Skechers all the time. There is a middle ground that we'll present to you, which is gonna be the Ultras. So let's go ahead and take a look at those shoes now. All right, so the first shoe that we're looking at is going to be a Vivo. This is going to be very little support inside the shoe. If I can actually get this out here, I'll be able to show you. Here you go. So you can see it's basically nothing. You're essentially walking around barefoot. This is not gonna be very thick either in terms of that. And also what we're gonna see is that the shoe is very flexible. And a lot of people will say, oh man, look how awesome this is. Your foot can move so many ways, which is great. But again, it's really dependent on the person. There's a lot of people that have floppy feet that actually need some support and some spots to maybe stay rigid so that they can actually move through other spots instead of everything collapsing or everything coming in. So that's something to really consider there. The other huge thing that's a huge benefit in my mind here is that it's wide. Right? We know that many people can be successful, the body adapts. I don't want you to think, oh, I'm doomed forever. The reason I have this or that is because I'm wearing narrow shoes. But at the same time, it seems like a very simple fix that could yield really good results in terms of wearing a shoe that actually mirrors what your foot is supposed to look like and does look like. A lot of people that will have bunions or bunionettes, I guess is what they would really call it, is that pinky being pushed in, their shoe will be super narrow. So you have no shot at having a splayed foot or a wider foot. You'll also see the same thing happening with the big toe. If your shoe is pushing in here like this, you really have no shot at getting that wide splay of the toes and really having your big toe function really well. So having that wide shoe is something I'd like to see in all shoes. As you're gonna see when we go through basketball and cleats, it's not really an option for a lot of those scenarios, but it's something that you should try to think about. Now, the other thing that we want to see is there should be some movement in here, but again, it's the same thing as this. Some people are going to need to be restricted while their foot is able to kind of move better. That's really the whole thing about orthotics. We'll make a separate video on orthotics, but it's again, it depends. Some people are going to really need them really well early on, and then they should wean themselves off of them. Some people, maybe like an older population, they could wear them forever and it just helps them because they're not exactly cutting on the field. There's also, keep going on the orthotics, there's also on-field athletes that maybe having the orthotic is a huge plus. Either way, Dr. Scholl and going to Walmart is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having a professional really create them for you. So that's what we're thinking about with the Vivos. Yeah, they're a great option. They're definitely the hardest option to jump right into. So you might think about progressing, or my suggestion, if you do want to get these, wear them outside, go to the field with your kids, go on the grass, you know, just go hiking in them, go on surfaces that aren't flat and aren't hard and slowly build up to them, and that will help you out. So let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. All right, next ones that we're looking at are going to be some Ultras. These are the Solstice. As you can see, I actually really like these shoes because they're so goddamn dirty. What we are seeing here is very similar to the Vivos. They have a lot of ability to bend, but not as much. So you can see there's a little bit of stiffness there that can be very helpful for some people. You can see that they're very wide, really looking like a foot there. Another little side note, if you want to see where you're putting a lot of the weight on your foot, you can kind of see what spot is getting more of the pressure there as it wears on the tread. The other thing that we want to see with these is that there is a little bit more here. So when I put these on, it doesn't feel like I'm necessarily walking only barefoot like the Vivos feel. And I think that as a general kind of guideline for most people that want to get into wearing these types of shoes, this is where I would start versus going straight to the Vivos. Having that little bit of cushion, it really helps in the long run, and it feels a lot better, especially if you do find yourself walking on concrete and harder surfaces. To ease into it, the jump is going to be a little bit easier here than going from something like an Asics or a Brooks or a running shoe that has a little bit more cushion. Overall, I really love these, and we already talked about all the same things: the wide foot, having a little bit of this, being able to have some turn, but these have a little bit more support, a little bit more rigidity to them. And like I said, these would be my best general pick. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next ones. Next up, this really hits home for me. Finding good basketball shoes, it's been a nightmare over the years, honestly. Huge Nike, huge Jordan guy growing up. Wearing the basketball shoes after a certain while, particularly after they stopped making the Kobe's, has been really tough for me. So these have been just a heaven-sent shoe. These are the Mellows, they're Pumas. Obviously, they're a little bit harder to get. These are the Rick and Morty's, but there's other colors that you can easily get. We can see here that there is a pretty wide part of the shoe, which is really nice. You can see again, like we were talking about, there's way more cushion on this, but duh, you're jumping on a hard court over and over again hundreds of times, sprinting, running. We need that. Change of direction, a little bit higher here. Honestly, I still love wearing the lower Kobe, so that's not necessarily like, hey, you need ankle braces or anything. I don't really believe that. So that's something that you can also think about, is maybe a lower or high works for you. But overall, we can just see that the task is going to really mirror what your shoes should look like. And obviously a basketball shoe, you don't want to be barefoot. It's not going to work out for you. When you do go to get basketball shoes, try to look to see something that looks a little bit more like a foot. And you do want some rigidity here, because again, you're going to need to be stiff when we're doing plyometrics. You don't want to have a floppy foot that can't absorb and redirect a force into the ground. So that's a little tidbit about these. Hopefully they bring the Kobe's back where it is they are, so you'll see those soon from me if they do. Let's move on to the next one. All right, next up, looking at cleats. So like we mentioned before, the task should really mirror what you want in your shoes. When you're on the grass, having that cleat to pivot and turn off of and cut is going to be really helpful. Something to consider if you're playing indoor soccer. Maybe you want to get something that you see that's actually a turf shoe, be a little bit different than actually being on real grass. The other thing that I want to say is that most of these shoes absolutely suck. Did a lot of research, realized that they all look like a banana. You can see the width there is terrible. The way that I think about this is, what you're gonna do is need something outside of this to offset wearing these. So simply put, if I wear my cleats for 90 minutes, I'm gonna wear my toe spacers, something to spread my foot out. I might do just a couple of reps of piano, like you can see in some of our other videos. We'll link some of our free foot stuff in the below for you. And just being able to really work on getting your spread back, because you lost it for 90 minutes when you're wearing these. There's just no way around it. These are custom, obviously. Mav's dad got a little American flag, stay patriotic for you guys. But overall, these are pretty good. But again, at the same time, like, just know that if you're looking at cleats, you're probably not going to find this wide shoe. And if you do, please comment below, because we would like to buy that as well. So that's how we're going to break down this one. And yeah, they've worked out pretty well so far, but definitely need to do some stuff outside of that to offset the effects. Lastly, we want to talk a little bit about Asics, Brooks, some of the more supported shoes. I really want to make sure that this video doesn't say, hey, these shoes are bad, or having too much support is bad, or if you wear a shoe that's not wide, you're gonna be in pain. None of those things are true. The human body can adapt to anything. And there's a lot of people that actually need to bridge the gap to barefoot shoes with some of these other shoes that we're talking about. Similar to how we talked about the Ultras have a little bit more cushion. Maybe someone spends a year in those and then they're able to get to the Vivos that are a little bit more bare. The Asics are also going to have a lot of advantages. They might not be as wide in the toe box, so you can actually work on that outside, spend time barefoot around the house, things like that to offset it. But they're also not going to smush you as much as like a Prada shoe or something like that is. One thing that I did want to mention with that is that the heel can be an actual game changer for a lot of people. In the Vivos, we showed you how floppy they can be, how much they can really mold. When you have a shoe like an Asics or Brooks, any of these, one of the things that you'll see is the heel has a very snug fit. And a lot of people that are kind of collapsed at the heel might actually benefit from having some support back there. It can increase their ability to sense their heels, and that can actually transfer over to more efficient walking, running, all of that stuff. So that's a key point there. We'll put a picture up of the Asics that I'm talking about, even though there's many of them, and they can be very beneficial. It's not, hey, these are not going to work for anybody, go to barefoot right away. Just want to make that point. All right, everyone, quick wrap up of the video. Barefoot shoes are great. Definitely need to treat them as they are, meaning concrete is still hard. Have your shoe actually mirror the task that you want. Basketball is gonna be different than grass. Sidewalk is gonna be way different than going hiking. You can have multiple pairs of shoes, or you could actually just start off with one that has a little bit more support and slowly, progressively work your way to having less support if you want. Doing stuff outside of your shoes, barefoot around the house, barefoot in the grass is really great. And even just working on your individual foot strength, identifying what you need help with. We have our mini course on the foot that we'll link below, and we'll also continue to link all the other videos that are free on here in terms of strengthening your feet. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let us know if you have any questions. We're definitely going to do more videos answering questions. So if you have anything that you want us to cover in depth, please let us know in the comments below. Your feedback is always appreciated. Don't forget to subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thanks so much.